Imagine when he only cared about music. It was like aliens in space, no language needed. Family? Easier, like a comedy. Downstairs at the wellness center, a pretty bespectacled lady often brought her sick elderly mother, probably straining their finances. This young girl spent so much time at the wellness center. She seemed like a naive little lamb, hiding a heart full of daddy love. Soon after, the Queen's ambassador came back to Fred, hoping he'd join a concert to play his hit song recitation. Sounds like a karaoke machine. Unfortunately, Fred declined with vague personal reasons, leaving the ambassador scratching his head in confusion, and after hearing Fred's excuse, he awkwardly bolted like he'd seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Lena was crying like a flower in the rain, realizing her dad had been in love with her mum all along, just too caught up in his music to remember the mother. The day Fred erupted like a volcano, and the mute girl, usually silent, spoke up. A historic moment. This elegantly simple girl had barely any expectations from the world. Her desires were so few, they barely warranted a word. Only music could help her find herself. Picture a telescope. If you look directly into it, it's like seeing your younger self. Everything feels so within reach. Imagine your future. If you flipped it around, what would it look like? Right? The anxiety about the future would just shoot off like a rocket. If you look the other way, it's your old face, everything drifting away like some far-off past. If you flipped it over, everything seems just out of reach, like your own past waving goodbye. Finally, Mick's script neared its end, but lacked a perfect ending. With hazy childhood memories, he didn't know how to conclude. But he yelled, "I can do it!" confidently, sure he'd soon succeed. Meanwhile, Lena and her father resolved their issues, and he escaped marriage's troubles. Dressed like a sexy goddess, Lena caught the attention of a rock climber, who came over to chat, despite having a somewhat awkward reason. The reason was a bit goofy, but he flaunted his love for freedom, which was exactly what Lena craved. Luca took Lena to go climbing while lugging a little girl up with him. The little girl was a bit scared at first, but as they climbed higher, her worldview got a serious upgrade. Lena felt that moment deeply, so she quietly turned and left. At dinner, she reminded her dad that her Frenchie had written him loads of letters. He wanted to publish Fred's memoir, but stubborn Fred still said no. Mick thought it was such a waste, but tonight's performance was like an award show, absolutely stunning. Jimmy was having a great chat with Fred when a Miss Universe approached him, absolutely thrilled to meet her idol. Jimmy's character, Mr. Q, sent her into her. That role made Jimmy feel a bit awkward. Have you seen any other movies? Of course. My entire life has been about wanting to be an actor. I don't want to rely on my looks alone. Have you learned anything? Or just watch reality shows? I'm so grateful for this idol. But when it gets hit with some poison, something always leaks out. The funny thing is, I just don't want to. I'm really happy, but those old cartoons were part of the universe. How do you feel about birds? Are you happy? At this point, Jimmy met a girl who openly admitted she'd seen him in a movie, and to his shock, it was Mr. Q. Subtitles. She was particularly fond of his portrayal as a father who had never seen his son before. The little girl was especially taken with one particular line from the movie, which instantly inspired Jimmy. The reason Jimmy chose to go on vacation was that she wasn't ready to decide on her next role. The little girl's words hit home and shook her. She aimed to portray desire, not meaningless fear. Meanwhile, the masseuse danced gracefully in front of the TV. The former golden toe lay in a rocking chair, feeling restless and unable to relax. Her heart was full of anxiety, mirroring the struggles of the next generation. Finally, Jimmy arrived at the salon, ready to become an aspiring actress. The lady in red hung under the night sky, seemingly indifferent to the opinions of others. Lena woke up under her father's caring gaze, while Fred kept tapping his neck. Mick huddled with young writers and the script's ending, while the priest stirred leaves. Jimmy, in a new costume, resembled a play's opening. Turns out she was set to play Hitler. The first audience member was the little girl, who stared for a moment at Jimmy's costume, clearly puzzled. Then she chuckled and waved her hand. Jimmy mimicked Golden Toe's walking style, limping into the restaurant while trying to eat like a noble couple. Everyone in the restaurant was so shocked they couldn't speak, while Jimmy immersed himself deeper into his performance. Turns out, intricate art springs from ordinary life. The embodiment of sexy bravery. Ever since Lena and Julian broke up, Mick was plagued by an unspeakable guilt. He felt guilty about his son's actions and apologized to Lena. However, Lena thought it wasn't Mick's fault. Lena noticed her dad acted oddly lately. He stroked her cheek as she slept and said he missed her mom Melanie. This marked the very first time in Lena's life that, on each such occasion, she would pretend to be asleep. The words Lena's father, Lena's father, Lena's father were mentioned, and then it was Lena who spoke up. Mick persuaded Ahmed to visit his wife Melanie. They chatted in the garden about actor roles. Subtitles. Jimmy closely observed and took note of every significant and minor event at the nursing home, and eventually arrived at a conclusion. Mick was highly impressed by Jimmy's intelligence and offered his commendation. In this chaotic world, he finally found his own peaceful paradise. Not long after, the leading actress from Mick's script, Brenda, said she had won the Oscar twice and worked with Mick for a solid 53 years, starring in 11 of his films, but this time, she wanted to end the partnership. The reason was that she signed up for a 3-year high-paying role, able to cover her son's rehab bills and her ex-husband's debt. It could also let her buy a Miami house and enjoy her later years, a decision she had pondered for 14 years. Mick couldn't accept Brenda's choice. He felt like Brenda had betrayed him, thinking that if it weren't for him rescuing her from the producers, she wouldn't have such success today.